All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to session 3 of Lunch and Learn with Okullu Walter. We'll go ahead and wait for everybody to hopefully jump on the live with us in a couple minutes, and then we'll get started. Walter, how's it going in Uganda?
Hello. Yes. May I say good morning first of all, and good morning to the audience. Uganda is fine. We are receiving a lot of rain. Today has been a bit chilly, so it's generally good for us, as we the farmers. So we are very happy. The crops are already being planted, and what more can we ask for as farmers? So it's a good period for us.
Very true. All farmers love rain. I think that's pretty unanimous.
Yes.
All right. It looks like we've got some people join in. Hello, Alexa, Jay, Joanne, Charles. Everyone's coming on in. So let's go ahead and get started. Howdy, my name is Jessica Spence. I came to know Field of Hope through starting off by going to Uganda in 2019 to do communications work for Field of Hope. Later became a fellow, and now I'm still on the team working with marketing and communications for Field of Hope. So I got to meet wonderful Walter back in 2019 when I went to Uganda. And looking forward to seeing him soon the next time I go. But I would just like to introduce everyone to Okullu Walter. He has been our famous host of Walter Wisdom Wednesdays. And now we decided to bring that live to all of you. And today we're going to be talking about one of Field of Hope's pillars. You already watched Alexa a couple weeks ago with Walter giving an overview about Field of Hope. You watched Dr. Tobin Redwine speak about the youth agricultural education pillar of Field of Hope. And today we're going to be talking about smallholder farmer advancement. So Walter, I'll just go ahead and give you a second to introduce yourself, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Well, thank you so much, Jess. May I say good morning to all my friends over that side. It's such a wonderful moment to be with you again on this call. In fact, it has been more interactive, over the past sessions, and I've really enjoyed it. And that really pushes me even further to, gives me more, reasons to always keep engaging with you. I feel excited to share with you what Field of Hope is doing here in Uganda. Your questions are always so valuable to us. They don't only help us to answer them, but they also make us understand how deeper to know about what Field of Hope is doing. So I look forward to today's session and the subsequent one, which probably will be the last for the due course. Thank you, Jess.
Yes, thank you. So for anyone tuning in that's maybe less familiar with Uganda or why smallholder farmer advancement is something that Field of Hope works to improve, I just wanted to kind of paint the picture and articulate that about over 80% of Uganda's population lives in rural areas. And so that means that they are often smallholder farmers, so growing food to feed their families. And it's a way of life for over 65% of the country. So in Uganda, that's a very popular means of making a living, and why we work to improve those lives, as about 25% of them are still remain undernourished. So that's kind of what Field of Hope works towards improving through agriculture support, including our Ugandan women's program. Micah asked, how do agricultural extension services in Uganda support farmers? And how does Field of Hope support this work?
Okay, thank you, Jess, and thank you, Micah. Today's question, I think it's really resonating so well with what Field of Hope does. and more especially what I do with Field of Hope. So from that background you gave, Jess, you'll agree with me that the majority of the farmers in Uganda, the majority of people in Uganda are farmers. So that's why, be it government interventions or development partners intervening, they tend to target livelihood, because that directly touches the people we work with, including the women. So that means any approach that we have to use will definitely have to be geared towards those farmers. So extension, maybe just to give Micah a bit about that background. Like I said, yes, Uganda is an agricultural country, or country whose economy depends largely on agriculture. So integrating extension into the rural development is really key. And you'll appreciate that this requires technology adoption, where these farmers have to be exposed to information, technology, and their attitudes have to change towards these technologies that we always showcase. But this cannot be achieved if we don't have the right channel, if we don't have the right people to cascade this information to them. Thus, extension becomes very important, because here we have the extension workers who play a key role in disseminating this information to the farmers, disseminating the technologies to the farmers, and also ensuring that they change their attitudes. Because even though we give them this information, but if they don't change their attitudes, definitely their lives cannot be changed. That said, Micah, you realize that extension services actually are the way to go for both government and non-governmental organizations when it comes to interventions that targets the lives of these people. So with that, it has made us to have what I would call like two channels of extension. That's what I would call the public extension services and private service extension services. So the public extension services, this is actually channeled normally through the government system, where government has extension officers at various levels, as low as an administrative level called sub-counties, which is actually the smallest administrative level, which is funded by the government. So you find that these administrative units have extension workers whose work is actually to disseminate this information and other roles, which I'm going to stipulate later on. Then we have the private service providers. These ones, we call them private because some of them are serving with the development partners who are not directly affiliated to the government. Then we also have others who do their individual, offer individual services to these farmers. A case in point I can give is like veterinary officers, where you find that if a farmer has a sick animal, this extension officer goes and actually treats the animals, but you find that there's some bit of cost sharing because the farmer has to pay for the services. So that's brief about how extension came into existence, and because of that, we have had several reforms. Because extension, if you may remember, it started way back in Iraq, and it has undergone several transitions up to date. And more especially with Uganda, we have had also several reforms. So that said, I would actually rebrand what you're calling the agriculture extension services, because it's not just about agriculture extension. Actually, we have nowadays added advisory. Mm-hmm. Because initially, when we talked about extension, it was just about dissemination of knowledge and technologies to these farmers. But you find that advisory has been incorporated because it's covering a broader agenda. It just doesn't tackle information or dissemination in terms of technologies, but also other cross-cutting issues, like linking them to the markets, like gender mainstreaming, creating awareness. So you find that these are broader agendas other than just agriculture or extension, which they were tackling. So that said, Micah, allow me categorize this into three, okay? The services that are offered by extension agents here. One is under a category, I would say, technology and information sharing, which is typically what the prime roles of extensionists are. that is dissemination of information. We appreciate that over the time as a way of, of addressing some of the challenges that the farmers are facing. New technologies have emerged, and these technologies are developed from somewhere else, but then there's need for these farmers to actually gain access to them. So these extension workers stand in the gap to ensure that the information is, or picked from whichever source. Like most times, the research stations, then disseminated to the farmers, and also vice versa, because sometimes these research organizations require that these problems that come from down have to reach them, but there has to be a link between the farmers and them, because these farmers cannot always go to the research stations. Mm-hmm. So it's actually the role of the extension workers in this. So that's what I would say. But you'll also appreciate that farmers learn better by doing, okay? Mm-hmm. Or even sometimes if you demonstrate these technologies to them, that's when actually they adapt. So you find that because the extension workers are capacitated technically and in other fields, so it's actually very easy for them to package this information, sometimes by setting demonstration or centers or sites where these people come and learn from. So they have really been so resourceful in ensuring that these technologies are adapted by the farmer. So that's the other service that they offer to the farmers. Then the other I would say is supporting implementation of government policies and programs. You will be aware that you will come to realize that there are several programs that come targeting the livelihood of these farmers. A case in point I can tell you is what we call Operation Wealth Creation. So Operation Wealth Creation is a program that was initiated by the government of Uganda and the Ministry of Agriculture, which targets the smallholder farmers where they distribute inputs. Okay, so you find that the extension workers have to, since they're based, in the localities where these farmers are, they aggregate them, they aggregate their demands, and it's channeled to the higher level where procurement is done. And actually following that channel, it's again through the extension workers that these inputs are distributed to the farmers, alongside offering them technical guidance. There are others such as UWEP. UWEP is what we call Uganda Women's Effort, Uganda Women's Empowerment Program. Mm-hmm. So this is a program that was also set by the government and the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. So it's a scheme that avails funds to women who are in groups who have identified an income-generating activity, but they're supposed to pay it back, okay? So all this kind of information, it's the extension workers who actually ensure that these people get, okay? So those are just a few of the examples of such kind of government programs and maybe perhaps policies that these people get to know through the extension workers who are together with them. Like I said again, just in the beginning, extension is not just tackling agriculture nowadays. We know that several intertwined, disciplines that enhance livelihood. Yes. So you find that much efforts in the past have been put, in just ensuring that there's increased production and productivity. But some of the cross-cutting issues, such as hygiene, sanitation, home management, nutrition, education, they were ignored, okay? But then we didn't have any clear channel to disseminate such information, okay? So you find that it's still the extension workers or the extension services that ensure that such kind of information reach these people. So those few points are things that I would categorize under what I'm calling technology and information sharing. Then the other component I would call it advice related to farm or organizational or management. Okay, so you find that it's generally a policy that for any government support or for any development partners support to reach these farmers, they are always supposed to be in groups, okay? But as you understand, we live in a dynamic society.
Mhm.
People have different characters. So these all people are trained to ensure that they bring these people on board, they form groups, and they establish organization or leadership structure beg your pardon, the leadership structure, and they are strengthened to ensure that, first of all, they're focused, they work as a team, and at the end of the day, there's a considerable output in terms of what they do. So it's again the extension workers who ensure that they move down and generate these ideas and ensure that these people come together, they identify their problems, they identify the solutions, and for them, they work as facilitators to ensure that they achieve their goals. And this takes me back to the philosophy of extension, which says, start where they are with what they have to help them help themselves, okay? So that means for any extension worker to really be that successful, you have to understand those three key points. Start where they are with what they have to help them help themselves. So that means we will appreciate that these people, it's just a matter of connecting some few dotted lines and there'll be a complete package. Just empowering them, giving them that information, or showing them the way, and they can actually always be successful in life. So that's why we emphasize the need for them to be in groups, which is actually done by the extension worker. Then we also try to connect them to other supporting sectors, because we appreciate agriculture is not a standalone industry. We need other sectors that will aid its success. So given that these farmers most times are not learned, or they may not be very exposed, so it's still the extension worker who does link them to financial services like the banks, which could actually offer them loans in case they need loans for agriculture, linking them to the markets, which is also very critical, because one challenge we realize is these farmers have always had a problem when it comes to getting market. Why? Because we have liberalized economy, so it's most times about the farmer and the buyer. But through the efforts of the extension workers, ensures that these people can have some form of binding or engagement with the off-takers or the other service providers, so that at the end of the day, the agricultural or intervention, agricultural activities become successful. Yes. Then the last component, I would call it facilitation of brokerage and rural development along the value chain. So still, it has to do with linking them to other private sectors. Sometimes you will believe me that as an extension worker or in a body that is offering extension services, you cannot tackle all the areas, all the problems that are faced by farmers. But it's still through the extension services that these farmers get to have access to other people who could actually step in, okay? Sometimes, like Field of Hope, we have ever brought so many people on board who actually offer other services which may not be directly or under what Field of Hope does, okay? We have brought several financial institutions. Sometimes we bring people from the research station because we find that some challenges actually are beyond our reach. Sometimes we find that maybe their proposals can only be understood better by these development partners, or their problems can only be solved by these development partners. Sometimes we just connect them to other offices, okay? As you will be aware, or as you're aware of, there are so many issues like gender mainstreaming. You find that as we may not totally address it, but this is now where we have to create that linkage, okay? We can connect them to the offices that are directly related to handling gender issues, okay? Maybe childcare, education, all those. So this is the work of extension, or service providers. And lastly, because we interact with these people, we are always with them all the time, they look at us as where they can get help firsthand. Okay, a farmer may not necessarily know that you are not a doctor, may not necessarily know that you are a counselor. Okay, but just because we are always so close to them, any challenge that they face, they look at you as the first point of our intervention. So, sometimes, you find that they even have issues at home. Okay, and because of the training that the service providers or extension service providers have undergone, they've actually been equipped to handle all these other issues that come along. So we find we go ahead to the extent of resolving conflicts or actually mediating in case we have to. And this goes just beyond extension services. That's where the other word of advisory services comes into play. Okay. So
yeah, Walter, wow, it seems like extension really has a very multifaceted job. Thank you for laying it out for us and your kind of three sectors. Something that I think Micah also added she was interested to hear was, how exactly does Field of Hope support extension work?
Okay, so Micah, that's a great question. So talking of Field of Hope's work with the smallholder farmers, I think basically the method they're using has to do with extension, approach. And in this, you find that because these farmers are already in place or they are in groups, and based on the other reasons I gave you, or why the extension workers are important, which included group formation. So the basic unit of entry of our entry is the groups. So you find that because these farmers are diverse, they're dynamic, that means we first have to tune them for them to actually follow one route, to have a similar goal, similar aspirations. And that means changing the attitude, because they're all, I would say, they're all from different planets, but today we want them to speak the same language. Okay. Yes. So this requires that they have to undergo some sort of mentorship, some sort of trainings, which are the things done by Field of Hope. So Field of Hope engages these people, first of all, via trainings. So in all our interventions, training take the lead, okay? Because we believe that giving them the information is a source, is one way that we can ensure that they change their attitude, and at the end of the day, they're successful. And the other, when it comes to agricultural activities, we also have demonstration sites. So we find that we set demonstration sites to enhance, technology transfer, which at the end of the day, they also copy and, or they copy and do it in their fields. Then thirdly, sometimes Field of Hope has provided material, or items such as inputs, because we believe that all this aids towards adaptation, because once the information has been disseminated and they've appreciated, sometimes because they lack the resources, Field of Hope goes ahead and gives whatever I told you about, sometimes seeds, fertilizers, or those items for them to use in their gardens. And then we also connect them to other service providers, to the markets, to financial institutions, insurance companies, or off-takers, input dealers. So all these extension approaches that Field of Hope employs to ensure that these people are empowered, and at the end of the day, they can stand on their own and be successful. Micah.
Absolutely. That's the mission at the end of the day. Thank you for laying out exactly how Field of Hope supports extension efforts in country. And it looks like we've got a question from Jay in the comments. If anyone else has any questions for Walter, please comment them below. We'd love to take some questions. So before we get to the other ones we had, Jay asked if you could share a story of a successful farmer and their family that's been working with Field of Hope, who they are, what they do, what they learned. Do you have any good stories for us?
Wow. Jay, that's great. I'm always so happy to talk about the successes that we have had as Field of Hope over the time. you will agree with me that we have worked with these farmers for quite some time, and or after some period, we tend to recruit more on board. So yes, we have quite a number of success stories that I could share with you. One that I can just mention offhand is Nancy. Nancy, she belongs to one of the groups, which is in Dokolo. So initially, she had been striving hard as a peasant farmer to cultivate, but I find that at the end of the day, what she would get at the end of the season would be really so meager. So with the information, the empowerment she got through Field of Hopes training, Nancy started plowing, first of all, not in small pieces, at least 2 acres and above, and she would actually obtain a very good yield out of that. Then secondly, we always told them not to only rely on agriculture, they have to open other side businesses alongside. Actually, that's the model.
Entrepreneurs.
So
yes.
Nancy, because of the proceeds yes, exactly. Because of the proceeds she got from her field, she was in position to also start up a poultry project. Okay, and from there she opened a grocery. Okay, what for us we always call produce dealing. So like buying or produces from the farmers from the surrounding, storing for some time, and selling to other people. So if you went to Nancy's place right now, she has a house that's fully that is complete. She has bought some animals that she already has at her place.
Wow.
And she's just going stronger. So that's just one that I could talk about. But we have several. We have one in a Molata, or she's called, I'm trying to forget the name, but she opened a shop, okay, where she sells small items like paraffin or soap, salt within the villages, just because of that mindset change which we are talking about. Initially, people would get money out of agriculture, but how to spend it afterwards was also a big deal. Okay, that's why we had to incorporate financial literacy, because we felt that once they are not financially disciplined, then they would be striving year in, year out without any tangible outcome. So we can only talk about this because they were, first of all, given this information, they had to change their mindset, and they actually took it up and they're doing it. So I could actually go on and on, Jay, but we have quite a number of such cases here in Uganda. And thank you so much for asking.
Yes, well, it's definitely a good thing if you can go on. And that's great to hear of some of those success stories, Walter. I have a kind of an interesting question from Cassandra. She said she's currently learning a lot about human-wildlife conflict and was wondering if there were any species impacting Ugandan agriculture, and how do Ugandans mitigate these conflicts? Do you think they can cohabitat with the species for Ugandan agriculture?
Oh, this one has come from an angle I never expected, but it's really an interesting question, because these are creatures that we live with, and we really have to adapt, living with them. So thank you so much, Cassandra. One thing you have to know is Uganda is rich in terms of wildlife, nature generally, and how I wish you could ever travel and just see for yourself. So that said, we have so many of these organisms that we interact with, and I would try to categorize them into 2, okay, when it comes to agriculture, because we have farmers who live next to the game parks, okay. Then we have other farmers who live far away from the game parks. So that means these farmers face different challenges at any given point, okay, when it comes to these animals. So first, let me say, yes, these wild animals are there, and we have had several problems with them, or more especially those living next to the park. You find that because the parks are not fenced, of course, so at some point in time, these animals always break loose, okay, find elephants, giraffes, or
Oh, wow.
buffaloes. Yeah. Okay. Mention them. The crops, antelopes. So any nearby crop around there, definitely, they are always affected. And remember, the crops are more succulent sometimes than the grass, so they actually prefer them. This is maybe sorghum or corns. Okay. So for other farmers who are a bit far away from the park, you find that they still have other animals that do affect their crops. So we have rodents, we have monkeys, we have birds. Okay, so yes, it's a big deal, and it has really been hard for farmers to cope up with. So moving to how we have tried to to handle life with them. So for those ones who are next to the park, government has always strive hard to create trenches, more especially to prevent the big animals such as elephants and the buffaloes from crossing over. Yeah, so they dig a big trench and a bit long, or a long stretch, such that it stops them from crossing over. So that's one way that these farmers are being protected against this. However, elephants are very, very bright creatures. They will always maneuver and find a way.
Indeed.
Yes. So we have had instances where if the trench is not so deep, one would go into the trench, then its back is used as a ladder as a bridge to cross over to the other side, and it's pulled out.
Oh my gosh.
So that's how bright elephants can need to be. So, but at least it has been a bit effective. The other is other what I would call cultural methods. Okay, where you have scarecrows. Scarecrows, you find maybe a piece of stick and put hang a cloth on it, so that when wind is blowing, it looks like someone who is actually in the garden. So this is mostly effective for birds and maybe monkeys. Okay, sometimes they tie or maybe a metal which makes that sound when the wind is blowing, and that in some way scares them. Of course, not very effective, but these are just ways that farmers have always tried to deal with this challenge. The other is use of trap crops. You find that like for the monkeys, you find sometimes because they love maize, or if the mother crop is some other crop that actually they feed on, let's say beans, then you can perhaps put some few lines of the maize, which will actually obstruct them. Yeah. Okay. So their focus would be majorly on the maize. By the time they reach the field, sometimes finds when the garden is already cleared. But that's also not very effective. But these are just trials as when it comes to controlling this. Yeah. For well-established farms, sometimes they erect fences. Okay. So these fences can be the ones with barbed wire or with the natural hedges. So you find the entire perimeter is covered, so it's not accessible to these animals. So that's another way that these farmers have always tried to deal with this crisis. The other still, which is a bit cultural, is timely cultivation. So I would bring it in this context. You find that once we go by the pattern or the season for that particular crop, generally here there's a tendency that if first season favors maize, then most of the farmers around that area will actually cultivate maize. So chances are high that even though we have some animals breaking loose, let's say the monkeys, but because there are so many fields, yes. So
one farmer doesn't see as much effect on their crop.
Exactly.
Teamwork.
Yeah. Teamwork. Yes. So the moment you delay, and the last to be harvested, then I believe you're bound to pay the price. So that's one other way that our farmers have tried to employ. Then the others, of course, would go ahead and poison them. Okay, they buy the poison and they mix with the feed, and this is mostly for the birds. They mix with the feeds, so once they eat, they definitely they die, but it's not a good practice. And sometimes these farmers still go ahead and eat these birds, which is of course harmful. But sometimes they don't get to know this. So that's another way. Others use dogs. A case in point is the monkeys. Of course, for them, they don't cross lines. So once the monkey sees the dog, they feel definitely to have to run away. Or the squirrels, all these other rodents. So sometimes these are the things that are employed. Then for other farmers, they just manually chase them, okay? More especially once you plant legumes, the first 2 weeks are really critical, okay? There are birds that normally tend to come and cut off the cotyledon, and if you don't pay keen attention during the 2 weeks, you're bound to lose everything. So farmers sometimes, if they are not there themselves, they can employ other people to scare the birds away, so that these crops can emerge and reach that stage where these birds cannot affect. So these are some of the ways, the methods that are employed by our local farmers to ensure that they address the challenge of wildlife, which I would say are inevitable because they're also part of us. Yes, so we can't say we are going to deal away with them. Yeah.
It's really funny to hear of tactics that are similar, like a scarecrow, although I don't see them often in the US anymore. They definitely exist, but I can't imagine a US farmer has ever encountered an elephant walking over another elephant across a trench to get into their field. So definitely Ugandan farmers are dealing with some issues, technical and also wildlife related, that are very interesting. Well, Walter, I think we have time for just one more question. Yes. Dan asked, when smallholder farmers are successful in increasing yields, are they able to store the extra production for sale post-harvest in order to capture higher prices? If so, are they able to protect those crops from rodents?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Could you please repeat the last bit?
Oh, yes. So are they able to store their harvest for better sales, and can they protect them from any kind of rodents?
Okay, I get you. May you remind me who asked that question?
Oh, lovely Dan Stremke.
Oh, Dan. Oh, thank you so much, Dan. Yes, Dan. I really would love to bring to the attention of the audience that we don't only emphasize the need for these farmers to increase production and productivity, but one other challenge that we know is really critical to them is the issue of post-harvest handling. And if you relate that to our market system, the liberalized market, that means sometimes these people don't have ready market for their produces, okay? So, first of all, among the trainings that we conduct with these farmers is the appropriate post-harvest handling techniques and technologies, because we do appreciate that when it's off-season, there's a lot of produce lying about. So it's very important that they don't sell just because they are not in position to store, and yet because of the big volume in the market, the prices are low. So that said, we have always trained them on several post-harvest handling techniques, and one that I can tell you is the use of hermetic storage, which is very healthy. Hermetic storage, we have what we call fixed bag, the Purdue improved bags, which are airtight. So you find that this doesn't, first of all, allow these rodents and these other pests, the insect pests, to attack the produces. Maybe I need to bring it to your knowledge that why is it that a pest that doesn't have eyes gets a chance to attack a crop that is in the store? So their mechanism of identifying this is normally through smell. So because of the hermetic storage, you find that it's airtight, so it's not easy for these pests, first of all, to to access these produces wherever they are stored, because they cannot actually smell them. Okay, but then as farmers, they are also very, very innovative. There are other cultural practices that they have employed with the use of organ rationals. Organ rationals are these are what I would call pesticides, but made from organic or substances like the leaves, plant products, and all that. So you find that we have examples such as neem, tobacco for other people, chili. So all these are methods that are employed by these farmers to ensure that they store their crops for much longer, because the reality is these pests are there. It's just about where you store and how you store for them not to infect your produces. So yes, that is something that happens, Dan, and thank you for that great question.
Yes, Dan, thank you for that great question, and thank you, Walter, for that great answer, and that rounded us off really well. So I just want to say thank you, everyone who tuned in for watching our third segment of Lunch and Learns with Walter. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions, both beforehand and in the comments. If you have any inquiries about Field of Hope or our programs, feel free to email us at office@fieldofhope.org. But I wanted to remind you all to tune in a couple Wednesdays from now on the 19th of this month, right here, same place, same time, at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, with Whitney Thurman, our Vice President of the Board. She'll be hosting with Walter, and they'll be talking about our leadership pillar. So I want to give Walter a chance to say goodbye, but Obonga Migum, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, thank you so much, Jess, and thank you for thank you to the audience for being part of this call, and for those ones who submitted their questions, I highly appreciate. They are really great questions, and I think that helps to enlighten the rest of the audience about what Field of Hope is doing. And one thing that I've always been forgetting is to thank my Field of Hope Uganda team.
Yes,
I speak on their behalf. But it would be so unfair not to mention the efforts, the dedication towards the work Field of Hope does. We wouldn't have achieved this much if we didn't have these dedicated and passionate folks around. So to the audience, probably next time around, if there's a way, we also have to introduce them to you officially, or perhaps on call. These are people who are making this work possible, and I wouldn't be here to talk about the achievements if it were not for them. So Nicholas, Geoffrey, Agnes, I salute you all. You're all crew. You people, you're incredible folks, and I enjoy so much working with you. And just continue with the spirit. So that's it. Thank you so much. I hope to see you again on the 21st of this month, which probably will be the last.
The 19th, 19th, yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah. Actually, I'm remembering the old days. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
So I look forward to seeing you all on that date. And please keep your questions coming. I'll be so happy to answer all of them. Thank you so much, and Obonga Migum.
Obonga Migum. Bye, everybody. Thank you.